Hello, and welcome to 6 Degrees from Cannabis. I'm your host, Tori Rerick, PharmD and holistic healer. Each episode features a candid conversation about how connecting with the cannabis plant has enhanced an individual's wellness journey. Here to honor the plant, talk about healing, and have fun. In today's episode, our favorite weed auntie, Solonje Burnett, stops by the podcast to impart her wisdom on bridging intent and impact in the cannabis industry. As she shares a full day in the life of her cannabis consumption with us, she also name drops the sustainability and inclusivity-driven brands who represent the plant well. Listen to today's episode to hear how Solonje honors cannabis as an opportunity to change hearts and minds. Let's go to the show. Welcome back to the show. Today we are speaking with a super special human, Solonje Burnett. She's a humanist, community leader, space holder, and co-founder of Humble Bloom. Solonje is dedicated to elevating the marginalized global majority in the cannabis industry and beyond. She is a brand strategy and equity consultant, as well as a political activist. She speaks, partners, and consults on social equity, self-care, sexual health, racial injustice, gender discrimination, sustainability, and community empowerment. Solonje sits on the Cannabis Control Industrial Advisory Committee at Excelsior College, is an advisor and member of the Virtue Project's Business Equity Council, and an advisory board member at Crude, as well as a Green Rush program mentor. She facilitates breathwork experiences at Frequency. They're amazing, and hosted the show Radical Self-Care, Cannabis, Wellness, and Activism on Afropunk. Our episode is the 15th. She is also a member of the Resistance Revival Chorus, born out of the Women's March. Welcome, Solonje.
Thank you for having me, Tori.
This is a long time coming, it feels like for me, because I've been dancing with you a little bit in the cannabis space in my Moon Mother days. So I'm really excited to chat.
Yes, it has been a minute, but it's been so great to have this thread connected.
Yes. So the first thing I like to do with my guests is break the ice with an oracle card. I created a 420 friendly, highly inspired oracle deck with the sweet, gentle spirit of cannabis. And so I'd love to hear about your take on the card I've chosen today and how it relates to your relationship with cannabis. And so the card that was chosen for you is rhythm. And for those listening, we have, it's emoji-like. It's a symbol, a red symbol, and it looks like what you would imagine like drum beats to be visually, and it's red. So Solonje, what's your take on rhythm and cannabis?
Well, when you said rhythm, immediately I started thinking of flow. And the ability to access and move your body and be in flow when you hear music, and cannabis really being, the honey that ease into flow, and really achieve a flow that can help you attain a level of balance or homeostasis in your body. I know that for me, when it comes to self-care, three of my most used tools: breath, cannabis, and movement. And whether it is just having a dance break in the middle of the day, that is something that I'm a huge proponent of, to move whatever's stuck in your body or in your mind or in your spirit, that rhythm, that beat, taking you back to the ancestors and really channeling deep into that, your gut, your health, really into it.
Thank you for that. Definitely. It's interesting because this card is so strong. It feels strong to me to have your rhythm and be rooted in that way. And so I do think of roots. And so you just kind of threw me for a loop and you immediately were talking about flow, because I'm like, oh, this is sturdy, which doesn't mean they can't be one or the other or both. But you totally shifted that for me, and how I loved how you said cannabis is the honey.
Yeah, I think, when we think of rhythm, I know you said drums, and yes, it's like this impact that you hear, but it's also like the cadence. You think of like your heartbeat, that's something
Mm.
that's natural and just happens that without thinking, we're unconscious of it. It's quiet, but it's there. And it is rooted. It's deeply, it's
Mm.
rooted to our systems and how we move. So definitely feel the roots energy as well. But it's like, the sound, the frequency, the rhythms, those things can be soft and kind, they can be
Mm.
intense and loud, but either way, it's getting us into that movement. I love that energy.
Okay, PharmD.com. Here we go. So, Solange, what was your first or original perception of cannabis, and has it shifted?
Oh, yeah, hugely shifted. I'm obsessed with cannabis now, or as people
Mm.
would say, passionate.
Yeah, yeah.
That can go either way depending on who you're talking to. Passion can be perceived in different.
Mm.
But yeah, I think originally my relationship with the plant was one that was rooted in stigma and fear, like many of us. My family is from the Caribbean, and although there are stereotypes of like Jamaicans and weed and ganja, like, and certain cultural elements that people perceive may permeate throughout the entire Caribbean culture, we are colonized too. And so much of the stigma that we find in America is throughout the world,
Mm-hmm.
including the African diaspora and the Caribbean. So my parents, I'm first generation, and my parents were very much against cannabis, not for any reasons. It's not like they ever said, oh, it's not a medicine, it's not that, but just based on the penalties and the association that American culture for sure would put on you as a Black person who is
Mm.
smoking, whether you're lazy or you're criminal or whatever it is. They didn't want any of that stigma attached. So as a child, it was a no to all drugs, including
Mm-hmm.
cannabis.
Mm-hmm. What
But
was the
now
turning point?
I
Yeah.
love it.
Here we are.
Oh, yeah, I mean, the turning point probably the first time I really started engaging with cannabis was in college. I was one of those kids that was really programmed and had a lot of different extracurricular activities and athletics, and I didn't have time to be,
Mm-hmm.
experimenting with the
Mm-hmm.
plant, or I wasn't really like a girl who was going out and partying because I had to wake up early and go to a sports practice or game, or teach Sunday school or
Right.
sing. There were so many things to do. I didn't have time and I didn't have access and I wasn't really seeking it out. I didn't have a curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until college that I played varsity soccer at Wellesley College and I pulled my groin. And I was sidelined with this injury. And a friend told me, actually had made a balm out of cannabis. She was from Maine. And she also just had weed to smoke. And she was like, I know you're dealing with a lot of pain and you're going to PT and sitting in ice baths and heating and all of
Yeah.
that. Would you like to try some weed? And so I did. And I still wasn't actively going out and purchasing it or doing it recreationally, probably until after college when I had a boyfriend who smoked regularly,
Mm-hmm.
like every night. And so the two of us started smoking regularly. And then I finally jumped into the commerce
You
side
were all
and
in.
started purchasing for myself. Yeah.
That is a turning point when you're
That's a
like,
huge
okay,
turning
I'm
point
gonna
when
get
you're not
my
just like,
weed.
yeah,
Yeah.
getting it from somebody else. Like, yeah.
Yeah, what was the experience like when you were medicating for your injury?
I mean, it was pretty quick because I'd already been going through the physical therapy, but it was just interesting to start for that to be my first point of real contact and engagement. Most people, I think,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I was smoking with my friends or my cousin or like somebody else or whatever. And for me, or even in some cases, I know people who smoked with their parents because it's just
Mm-hmm.
really normal.
Did it feel like safer in a way, or like what did it feel like to see it in a balm? Was that familiar to you?
It was interesting. I remember it being, it was a pretty good consistency and it was very intense in the smell. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember that it had some kind of like eucalyptus or some kind of like some essential oils kind of stuff in it. And it felt pretty good, to like
Yeah.
put that on there and then have my icing do that and then put
Do
like
all the
weed
things.
and cannabis and do all the things and start to incorporate cannabis as a medicine for the first
That's
time.
a sweet example. And like, you can add it too. It's not like the only thing. You can have a
Right.
whole regimen. That's
Exactly.
sweet. Okay. Okay. So then now we're here. Now we're here. So how does the plant serve you now?
Oh, wow. The plant serves me in so many ways now. It's kind of wild. I was talking to the editor of Brooklyn Magazine a while ago and going down my list of how I use cannabis on a daily. I almost want to like pull that up and share that with
Please.
but it was like, let me see if I can find it. All right. So basically, I do all the things when it comes to weed. So normally I'll start my day off with like meditation paired with like a 1-to-1 CBD to THC smoke. Or I'll have some kind of CBD tea. I have the friends from Barbary sent over some beautiful blends recently. Also, I could just take drops, and I'll do that with my breath work practice if I do like a morning centering breath practice. I normally I try not to do combustibles if I'm doing breath work, but if I'm just meditating, then I will use combustibles. So it really is like, how am I planning on
Mm.
so I try to mix it up in the morning. And then, oh my gosh, it's wild. It's like my entire epidermis is covered in some kind of cannabis. I use topicals. Dogwood Botanicals has like a beautiful calendula rose face and body cream.
Mm.
Sometimes I use Moon Mother Hemp's glow serum.
Yes.
Also, Half Hippie has this like restorative face oil and healing salve, so I
Mhm.
kind of alternate between those. And then, throughout the day, I'm definitely like a roll a joint or roll something and leave it and come back and puff
For your
throughout the
future
day.
self, that's so sweet.
Yes, to try to make sure I don't smoke too much. I also roll like really skinny ones so that I don't smoke too much.
Thumbs up.
It's like, how can you psych yourself out?
Yes. Sometimes there's a
Um,
point of no return. You're like, okay, that's
it's just
over for today.
Exactly. I've done a lot today, and that's just what it is.
Yeah.
I also currently have like a reserve of like THC infused beverages. Like
Oh,
from Can sponsored a Humble Bloom event, and we had some extra, so I'm slowly going through that.
nice.
So I love drinking those. It just gives you that like light buzz that keeps you feeling kind of happy.
Yeah.
And then I have a lot of dry skin as well as like joint and muscle pain because I was, as I mentioned, an athlete. So, body goes through a lot of trauma when you're in that.
Right.
So Oho has a great like repair balm as well as I love Wildflowers like roll on that they have.
Mm.
And then even makeup, like from lip balms to lip glosses. And I love edibles, like, oh my God, Rose Los Angeles. I love their edibles so much. And I have, like, now that I'm in California, I have some granola. Like,
Oh,
there's just
yeah.
I'm trying to remember the name of that brand. But they're so good. So, I mean, it's everything from edibles and combustibles to topicals. And when I have my period, I'm about suppositories.
Yes, the suppositories.
Yeah, from Foria, also Chula has a great like moon and mood drop that you can take, and then even my hair, I
Mm.
use Frig sometimes and mix it into like coconut oil and other oil bases to do like scalp treatments. Um,
Beautiful.
yeah, and Quim is great for those sexy intimate moments.
Yes, you really can't. Once you go there, you can't
You really can't. You really can't go back.
The other night, my husband was like, "Do you think we need it?" I'm like, "Yeah,
yes.
we need it
forever, for the rest of our lives."
That's a third. That's our third.
Yeah. So I dropped a lot of names, but I mean, honestly, most of those, if not all, think maybe one of them that I mentioned is not owned by a femme, and or Black, or or Asian owned. So it's really nice to just be able to feel like you're supporting community every day.
Yeah, and in your most intimate ways.
Yeah.
Anointing your vessel and like getting your body and mind and spirit right. That's super powerful.
Anointing my vessel with the power of my sisterhood in cannabis. Here for it.
That's strength, if I've ever heard it. Like, that is support. We're gonna get into that, but you would say you consume cannabis for all the reasons, wellness, but also some very targeted like aspects of your life.
Yeah, for wellness, for sexual enhancement and enjoyment, for just getting into flow while I'm working so that my brain isn't going all over the place, for like actually control and calm.
Yeah. And like as you're speaking this, I'm like, to the person that doesn't consume, this might sound intense, and like I feel like it's hard to, if you're not in love with cannabis, it's hard to like.
The person who does consume, they're like, this girl is indoctrinated.
Like, okay.
Right.
But we're like really all going through these things all the time, and that comes up in conversation where it's like, how are you getting through this? I don't know how you do all of this. It's like, for some of us, it's cannabis. Like, cannabis is how I'm doing it, because we're all doing it. We're all going through it. And it's like, do you want to go through it like feeling lifted and supported? You don't have to, but cannabis is how I do it. So like, that's your answer.
Yeah, cannabis made me do it.
Yeah. It's what it is.
Inspires my dance breaks.
Yeah.
Break down.
Get into it.
Get into the flow.
So you've started going there. You're supporting your communities and diverse communities through your purchasing power. So what are some ways that you serve the plant?
Yeah, I mean, the plant is a beautiful, multifaceted thing. It can be used for so many things. And I think when people think about cannabis, they think about plant in the ground, harvest it, maybe put it in some products, or just smoke it directly, and then that's it. But cannabis is just really tied and can be used to heal this earth and our people, or it can be used to harm our people and our planet. And when you have that in mind, it's like, whether it is sustainability around the environmental issues that we're facing, the carbon output. I recently spoke to Julia Jacobson of Astor Farms. I was out in California doing grasslands, and one of the little tidbits, the nuggets of information that she gave, was that the CO output of Colorado currently in a year is equal to the amount of the coal industry, that the coal industry in the entire United States does, because of indoor grows. My brain exploded. And think about that now as it proliferates across the country, and especially in places like New York, where it's going to be super, like, I'm just terrified. And like, this is the information we don't have as we mindlessly consume the plant and use her. So it's like, when you think about issues of sustainability around that, around hiring and making sure that people are included. Another nugget I got from Julia was just like, within her community and trying to hire people of color or people of the global majority in an area that is so white and so Republican leaning, it's more than just hiring. It's helping them to make sure they can succeed in these environments and in these neighborhoods. Just like the plant, how do you create spaces for them so they're able to have access to housing in places that are truly racist and don't want people who look like us to even be living there, much less cultivating cannabis in the region. So, telling those stories, making sure people have facts and are armed with education around the plant, is how, in many ways, I serve the plant, and using my platform with purpose to educate and advocate for a plant that shows up that is equitable, that is fair, that is regenerative, and all that is used mindfully, that is consciously consumed, that supports communities by using your dollar wisely because you vote with your dollars, creating circular economies, thinking of the full supply chain and how you're integrating different folks and entrepreneurs into it. And just thinking of, I think for me, the plant is really just an opportunity to change hearts and minds and transform the world around us if we're actually awake and aware and activated.
Let that sink in. Everything you do is so impactful. You are such a bridge for this plant. And I think that's the best way to describe you. And for all that are listening, I just hope that you can receive Solonje in her entirety and her team and all of the organizations she works for and with, because we have to go deeper. We have to go deeper than surface level. Yeah. It's like, we want Black and brown people on the team, and it's like, okay, check, let's do that. And now you're speaking about housing these people. Like it's one step further. Okay. And it's about getting to know an individual and really supporting the community very deeply. So now we are connected with this new person on the team, and we want to support them in their whole lives so that this all works out.
They flourish and they grow. And like one thing Julia said, and I was just like, yeah, girl, I feel you on that. And this is something I talk about. It's like, you don't want to give people jobs. You want to set them up for careers so they can be successful, not just, oh, I got this gig. This was inhospitable. I'm out,
Yes.
Or the predatory equity partnerships that occur in this industry around licensing. Like, how are we making it so that people get to really grow and bloom and flourish and have opportunities for wealth, so that they survive in this capitalistic, colonistic culture that we all live in. It's like, no matter how much you want to try to break these systems down, we have to find ways to survive within as well.
Okay, deep breath. So you are typically on the East Coast. There's excitement around cannabis in New York, New Jersey. What do you think is being done well, and what do you think could be improved?
I think it can be extrapolated beyond just the East Coast, but I do feel like it's like we're still waiting for the regulations to come out in New York. Currently, what the words are from the legislation that has passed looks good on the surface. There's like 50% social equity, but then, what does social equity mean? It's like, okay, women, people of color, veterans, but there are women that are highly privileged and resourced. Do they get licenses, that don't look like you and me, and have access and power? I think, I don't know. I think what I am nervous about is how plants will be cultivated in New York and the environmental impacts. I am nervous about how will the regulations actually roll out and who will be included, as well as the learning curve. You get a license, and what? Do you have the skills? Do you have the team to actually succeed? Or are you just going to be locked to a space and going into debt? And owing all this money. Cannabis, as much as it looks like on the outside is this huge money maker, it's a long haul.
Definitely.
So it's like, what are you doing, and what is your plan? What is your out plan? What is your in plan? Who are you partnering with so that you don't end up in trouble? But I do think that New York is a bit ahead of the game. There are some pieces in place that look like they could set a standard. But I'm also nervous about, the ability to opt out and who in different counties, like similar to the MORE Act. It's like you could just decide, oh, we don't want to do this here. And then entire swaths of people, because politicians do not represent us. They represent their own personal interest in padding their pockets with profit. So if they don't want to put something somewhere because they can make money elsewhere, or they are just not well educated on it, which is the other issue. It's like we're talking about learning curves for consumers, but there's also learning curves for politicians. They have no idea. They've demonized this. They've thrown people in prison, and now they're just supposed to flip a switch and be able to run industry. It just doesn't make sense. So there's a lot of fear in that way, but there is excitement around like automatic expungements and people being able to enter the industry. But there's a lot of education and assistance and needed so that people can access and completely, make the industry reflective of the people that should be in it.
Right. What's like the first thing you look at if a brand consults you to just like take a look at what they have going on, sustainability wise, equity wise?
So when brands come to us for consulting? Or?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, what's really interesting about our consultative practice, we basically do content for brands, we do strategy, so we do like an analysis of where they stand currently, both in hiring as well as marketing, and what their systems are and how we can improve upon them. But what we've realized that a lot of our clients are very much values aligned. Maybe they just need that extra help to get there because they don't have the people power and bandwidth to do it. So a lot of the folks who've approached us in cannabis and outside, because we do work with brands that are outside of the cannabis space, it is really a sense of, I get what you're doing. I like how Humble Bloom shows up in the world, and we want a little bit of that. How do we get ourselves together in that way? And so there's this beautiful, like, base of mutual respect that happens. And if they sign on, it's like, all right, let's keep going. So there's like one brand, for example, named Crude, that's based in Utah, that we've been working with now for a year and some. And they're a personal care brand, but their package is very minimal when it comes to any kind of waste. They are all about the microbiome and inclusivity and biodiversity, and activism, and reflecting all people, whether they're differently abled or they're older or they're queer or they're Latinx or they're indigenous. It's like, let's make sure to showcase, show off, and support these folks. So like one of the things they charged us with doing was finding content creators that could be a part of the School of Unlearning, which is something that we dreamed up for them, which is really their activist and storytelling and education kind of based space online.
Nice.
Both on IG and blogs and, dance parties, all kinds of things, fundraisers, like conferences. But they have just been incredible to work with and so open. They wanted to step away from giving Facebook or Meta, the metaverse, their money. So instead of going into direct ads, they decided to have us create their content and directly pay content creators that were of color, that are differently abled, that are all of these things. So to be able to actually reach out to people and say, hey, we think that you could be great. Let's have an exploratory call. This is what Crude is, and we'd love to create some kind of content partnership. It has been beautiful to see. Like, and that's how they're working on growth. And it's really hard to do when you're working against that algorithm.
Yes.
They're standing strong and firm, and they're like, this is what we're going to do. And they are definitely getting penalized by no longer using Facebook ads or Instagram sponsored ads or anything like that.
That's really creative, though.
And it's really heart-centered. It's really beautiful to see, like, they care and they put humans first, and they realize it does matter. Like, do you want to pay some a-hole that's making it so that, like, we have insurrections and that we're becoming more polarized and we hate ourselves and we have no self-esteem? Or do you want to give it to beautiful farmers and
Yeah.
that are working in virology and folks that are working on vaginal health and all of these things directly and have important conversations. It's
important conversations.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer if you have any sort of people to use, but most people would opt for the easy, which is
right.
Pay Zuckerberg and his fiends.
Keep it up. Yeah. Okay, there's another way, there's another path, people. What's the cannabis question that you get asked most often, whether it's work or personally, whatever? What's your answer?
Oh my gosh. What is the cannabis question? I mean, I think one of the things I get asked most, and it varies, but it is just like personal questions for folks. And whether it's their father and he has arthritis, or, you know, it's like they come to me as Weed Auntie and ask questions about what they should do for themselves or their loved ones, what products they should buy, who they should support. And it's like, oh, I'm looking for a Black-owned brand, but I can't find it. Do you have any suggestions? Or like, I want to support a women-owned, like whatever it is. And it's like, I was looking on your website, but I don't see this. Like, do you know anything else? So it really is just like, ask your Weed Auntie some questions and see how she can help. So it varies, but
that's sweet.
Our loved ones, yeah.
Okay, but for the average person that's listening, they could go to your website and check things out.
Yeah, so you go to our website. Our website has an affiliate program that's really for education. That's really education-based. It's not like, oh, you can buy all these products right here. But if you click through and then go and you're looking on the pages, we don't have all the products that each brand has, but it highlights a few of them. And then people can make their own decisions once they get to the site and support those folks in their work.
Perfect. Okay, might be a challenging question because you are the Weed Auntie and you know everyone, but what are some cannabis-centered resources that you'd recommend right now?
Cannabis-centered resources. Like, I mean, there are so many things. It depends on what people are getting into. If you're looking for higher education, there's different to help you like align your path. There's now actually different schools that often offer certificate programs as well as education programs that are like popping up all around the country, including Excelsior's that you mentioned. I on the advisory board with my co-founder Danielle. So that's really cool. If you're in New York, actually, there is going to be, I think, just trying to figure out, not just in New York, depending on where you are, who are the local organizations who are doing things. Like, I think that is hugely essential. A lot of people want to jump into the industry and just start something without doing any homework around what already exists, and linking arms with those people and collaborating with them and learning from them rather than starting from scratch, I think is an amazing thing to do. Or figure out where you can bridge gaps that aren't already being bridged. But yeah, like in New York, there is a conference coming up that Point 7 group, Can Inclusive, and On the Revel are putting on, that it's all about licensing, which is like hugely timely. So those three organizations are really great. You know, I would just, lean into the local as well as the national organizations that are doing things. I also have, Google search words that certain things pop up for me so I can be reading what's going on. So I would do that too if you have a specific interest, whether it's CBD or CBN or CBG, any of these other cannabinoids, or if you're just looking to figure out what's going on locally with legislation. I think making yourself as educated as possible through these groups and just getting out there and networking and meeting people, having conversations. That has been the most educational for me. And me and Danielle are about 3.5 years into this journey, and we're about to go on a little working retreat to Puerto Rico, just so that we can do this again, have that time to refresh, explore what we want to do, where we're going next, and who could be those partners to get us there, and start new ways of thinking. So we're going to slow down to speed up.
That's her saying.
Yeah, slow down to speed up into 2022.
So
yeah, that's it. It's hard to just like name people,
and you know all the people, so
so many. Yeah, I'm not gonna shout out individuals or organizations, but like do your homework. That is the most important part, I think, in cannabis and in life in general.
Totally. Yeah. Okay, so one last shout out. Can you tell the listeners where to find you?
Yes. In bed in Brooklyn. No.
Word.
Now the daylight savings time has come to an end. I'll just be in bed until March,
It checks out.
No, okay. You can find me on Instagram and on the web at my name, Solonje, SOLONJEBURNETT.com for the internet and without the .com on IG. Also Humble Bloom. We have our IG and website, so humblebloom.co and Humble Bloom Co on IG. And just out in these streets, know that I feel like we were talking earlier about going on inward, and I have in many ways gone super, super inward and condensed my circle of people that I share with, that I move out in the world with, but I'm starting to re-emerge. So hopefully I'll see you in California. I'll see you in Puerto Rico. I'll see you wherever. Let's catch some flights and catch some hugs,
Here we go. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for your time today, Solonje. It's been beautiful.
Oh, this was great. Thank you so much, Tori. Have a beautiful day.
You too.
Thank you so much for tuning in to 6 Degrees from Cannabis. If you connected with this episode, please share it with a friend who would benefit from hearing it too. Tap the subscribe button to be notified when the next 6 Degrees episode is released. You can find more information about holistic healing, the Follow Your Heart Oracle deck, and what I do by visiting ToriRerick.com. If you message us on Instagram at the number 6 Degrees from Cannabis, we'll be sure to message you back. Bliss be with you.